He didn't react when they laughed. The boardroom was glass on 3 sides, and the city reflected back at us like we were part of something important. My friend stood near the end of the table, holding a folder he hadn't opened yet. His uncle leaned back in the leather chair and said, almost casually, "You're not cut out for this. You never were." A few cousins chuckled. One actually clapped once, slow and sharp. The meeting was supposed to be about control of the family properties after his grandfather's death. Instead, it became a public vote of confidence, and he lost. They stripped him of operational authority in under 10 minutes. He nodded, said nothing, closed the folder. By the time he reached the elevator, his phone buzzed. It wasn't family. It was the county probate clerk. The clerk didn't waste time. "Mr. Halvorsen," she said. Her voice was even, practiced. "There appears to be a discrepancy in the guardianship amendment filed this morning. We need clarification before it's processed." My friend, Evan, pressed the elevator button twice, though it was already lit. "What kind of discrepancy?" "A signature timing issue," she replied. "The notarization timestamp predates the digital submission by 4 hours. That's unusual." He didn't respond immediately. He stepped out of the building and onto the sidewalk. I was waiting across the street because he'd asked me to come. Not for backup. Just to observe. He ended the call with, "I'll review and respond formally." No panic. No anger. Inside that boardroom, they just voted to remove him from oversight of 6 commercial properties his grandfather built over 40 years. The official explanation was efficiency. The real reason was simpler. His uncle wanted consolidated control. Evan had been managing the books quietly for the past 3 years. Rent rolls, maintenance schedules, vendor contracts. He caught small irregularities, but never accused anyone. He documented. The guardianship amendment was new. His grandfather, 87 and declining, had signed limited financial oversight to Evan last winter. It was narrow. Just enough to protect accounts from being drained while hospital bills increased. This morning, before the board meeting, a revised version appeared. The revision stripped Evan of oversight and transferred full authority to his uncle, citing erratic decision-making. That phrase had been read aloud in the boardroom. Erratic. I saw his jaw tighten when they said it. That was the only sign. They assumed he hadn't noticed the timing. They assumed he wouldn't check. They assumed wrong. Back at his apartment, Evan opened his laptop and pulled the electronic filing record. The county portal logs everything. Submission time. IP address. Notary license number. The timestamp discrepancy the clerk mentioned wasn't small. The notary verification showed 7:12 a.m. The digital filing hit the system at 3:04 a.m., which meant the document existed online before it was legally notarized. That doesn't happen by accident. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the screen for a long moment. "I didn't attend any signing this morning," he said quietly. I nodded. "Were you supposed to?" He shook his head. The board meeting invitation had been sent the night before, labeled urgent. No mention of filings. By noon, he had already drafted a request for certified copies of the notary logbook. That's public record in this state. If a notary stamps a document, they log the ID presented, the time, and the signature. He didn't accuse anyone. He requested verification. At 2:17 p.m., his uncle sent a group email. Subject line, moving forward. It was polished. Confident. Now that governance has been simplified, we can operate without friction, it read. Evan's contributions are appreciated but no longer required in day-to-day operations. No longer required. It sounded final. At 2:19 p.m., Evan forwarded that email to his attorney. No commentary. Just the timestamp. By 4:40 p.m., the probate clerk called again. "Mr. Halvorsen," she said, voice slightly different now, less neutral. "We've placed a temporary hold on the amendment pending verification of notary compliance." He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just said, "Understood." The hold meant the transfer of authority wasn't effective yet, which meant his uncle didn't legally control the properties. Not yet. That evening, another email arrived. This one from his cousin. Short. "You're making this messy." Evan read it once. Closed the laptop. "They think paperwork is noise," he said. "It's not." The next morning, a bank alert hit his phone. A wire transfer attempt. High six figures. From the main property operating account. Initiated at 3:16 a.m. Part 2. The wire didn't go through. Not because someone stopped it at the bank. Because the account still required dual authorization. His name was still listed. That's what the temporary hold did. It froze the shift in control. At 8:02 a.m., the bank's fraud division left a voicemail. Large transfer flagged due to new routing instructions. Please confirm legitimacy. Evan didn't call his uncle. He drove to the branch in person. The operations manager, a woman in her late 40s with reading glasses low on her nose, pulled up the account history while he sat across from her desk. The attempted wire was scheduled to a newly added vendor. Harbor Ridge Holdings. No prior payments. No vendor history. The request was submitted through the online portal using his uncle's login credentials. Timestamp. 3:16 a.m. Amount. $684,000. Memo line. Strategic restructuring. The manager looked at Evan. Are you aware of this vendor? No, he said calmly. She clicked deeper into the portal logs. IP address didn't match the office location. It matched his uncle's home network. She stopped typing. That's interesting, she said. Evan nodded once. Please keep the account restricted until governance is clarified. She printed the wire attempt summary and stamped it certified. Tone change. That was the moment. Not dramatic. Just professional recognition that something wasn't clean. By 10:11 a.m., his uncle sent another email. Subject. Urgent. Release funds. He wrote as if the bank error was procedural inconvenience. Transfer required immediately to prevent loss exposure, he said. No mention of amount. No explanation of vendor. He CC'd the entire family board. At 10:13 a.m., Evan replied all. Wire flagged due to unauthorized vendor addition. Governance amendment currently under probate review. Recommend pausing non-routine transfers until verification is complete. No emotion. No accusation. Just language. By noon, his phone buzzed continuously. Cousins texting. Aunt calling. One message stood out. From his uncle. You're jeopardizing everything over pride. Evan didn't respond. He pulled the vendor registration on Harbor Ridge Holdings through the state business database. It was formed 3 weeks ago. Registered agent. His cousin's wife. Operating address, a P.O. box. No website. No employees listed. He saved the record. Then he requested a copy of the amended guardianship document directly from the probate portal instead of relying on the PDF circulated during the board meeting. The scanned signature of his grandfather looked thinner than usual. The date stamp was correct. But the witness signature, his uncle's, was digitally inserted. Metadata showed the document had been modified after scanning. Small detail. Big implication. At 3:42 p.m., his attorney called. I've spoken with the clerk, she said. The notary logbook does not list your grandfather for this morning. Silence. Notary record missing means the stamp was either misused or fabricated. She continued. We're filing an objection and requesting immediate audit of the estate accounts. Until resolved, no structural transfers can occur. Evan looked at the city outside his window. Traffic steady. Noise normal. Inside the system, things were shifting. At 5:05 p.m., his uncle sent another group email. Subject. Temporary confusion. He blamed clerical error. He suggested everyone avoid speculation. He wrote too much. That was the pattern. When pressured, he overexplained. By nightfall, the probate clerk emailed confirmation. Amendment under formal investigation. Effective status. Suspended. Which meant the previous authority structure remained intact. Evan still had co-control. And the attempted wire was now logged in an active review file. His uncle didn't call that night. Instead, at 11:38 p.m., Evan received a text from his cousin. You've made your point. Let's fix this quietly. He set the phone face down. This wasn't about a point. It was about process. The next morning, a courier delivered a sealed envelope. Inside was a formal demand letter from his uncle's attorney. Allegation. Obstruction of fiduciary duty. The letter was heavy. Cream paper. Formal language. It accused Evan of delaying necessary transfers and damaging the estate's financial posture. It demanded he step aside voluntarily to avoid further reputational harm. He read it once. Then again. No raised voice. No reaction. At 9:07 a.m., his attorney filed a formal response. Request for forensic accounting review of all estate-linked accounts for the past 18 months. She attached the wire attempt summary, the vendor registration, the metadata report, the probate suspension notice, paper over emotion. At 10:42 a.m., the bank notified all authorized parties that account activity would remain frozen pending review. That changed the tone. At 1:15 p.m., his uncle called for the first time since the board meeting. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He said, "This doesn't need to escalate." Evan replied, "It already did." Silence on the other end. His uncle shifted strategy. He blamed advisors, claimed confusion, suggested the vendor was preliminary restructuring planning. He talked too long, named details no one had asked about. Every word was logged. That evening, the probate clerk's office confirmed the notary stamp used on the amendment belonged to a license that expired 2 months prior. Not suspended. Expired. The amendment was invalid. By default, authority reverted to the original structure. The one granting Evan oversight. No applause. No announcement. Just status restored. At 8:03 p.m., his cousin texted again. "Please. Call me." He didn't. He forwarded the expired notary confirmation to his attorney. The next move wouldn't be dramatic. It would be procedural. And final. He closed his laptop. The city outside kept moving. Inside the system, control had quietly shifted back to where it legally belonged.